I remember very much how kind everyone was to me, as we talk a lot about how much difficulty making The Godfather was.
Francis Ford Coppola just unleashed a jaw-dropping revelation about Gene Hackman, and the film world is absolutely buzzing. From intense behind-the-scenes clashes and creative differences to the sheer brilliance of their award-winning collaboration in The Conversation, these two legends crafted pure cinematic gold. But now, Coppola is finally breaking his silence and spilling shocking secrets about Hackman. Brace up for this cinematic shocker. Francis Ford Coppola was the visionary filmmaker whose name is synonymous with the golden age of American cinema. Not only has he always been known for his breakthroughs in storytelling, but also in casting. One name that stands out in the pantheon of actors who have brought his visions to life is none other than Gene Hackman. To understand the magnitude of Coppola's shocking admission, we need to rewind the clock to 1974, when Coppola and Hackman teamed up to create a psychological masterpiece that shaped them into the legends of Hollywood we celebrate today. When Coppola and Hackman made movie magic, Francis Ford Coppola and Gene Hackman were two titanic figures in Hollywood. They worked together for a short time, but they literally made magic. Their film The Conversation came out in 1974 and was a huge win for both their careers. However, their journey to make this psychological thriller was not easy. Inspired by Hermann Hesse's writing and the film Blow Up, Francis Coppola became obsessed with the idea of perception and its interesting twists. And that's how he built The Conversation, piece by piece. Instead of telling a story about people being watched, he flipped the perspective. What if the watcher was the one losing his grip on reality? That was the spark. At this time, Coppola already had fame. His film The Godfather was one game changer for American cinema, but rather than just enjoying his success, he wanted to try something new. With The Conversation, Coppola aimed for something more personal and deep. He wanted to explore themes like paranoia and the burden of knowledge.
But you're asking me questions all day long.
Jesus.
Don't say that.
All he needed was an actor who could show these emotions with just a look or a subtle movement. The success of Coppola's idea depended on finding the right person to play the lead character, Harry Caul. He needed an actor who could completely immerse himself in the role, someone who could play a man drowning in silence, haunted by the weight of what he knows. That's when Gene Hackman came in. Hackman was already recognized for his talent. He amazed audiences with his role as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, where he won his first Academy Award. He had a talent for playing tough characters that had a lot of depth.
Huh? Stand up there, naughty.
But The Conversation was different from his previous roles. It was not about action or big fights. Instead, it focused on a man struggling with guilt and confusion. Despite it not being his usual style, he nailed it. The outcome was incredible. The film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and became a classic of the 1970s. And then when Oscar season rolled around, it landed a Best Picture nomination, but it was up against The Godfather Part 2, another Coppola masterpiece. That film swept the Oscars, leaving The Conversation in the shadows. However, Hackman's portrayal of Harry Caul was not one that could be easily gotten over. The movie's themes of surveillance and moral responsibility were so profound, making The Conversation a timeless masterpiece. But there was more to Hackman and Coppola's collaboration than people realized. For decades, everyone had been longing to know how their partnership worked. It took years, but Coppola finally broke his silence. Let's explore this revelation. The shocking revelation. Gene Hackman was an impeccable actor who brought depth and nuance to every role. He carried the audience along with the emotions of the role he was playing. His talent kept audiences engaged, even needing more. When Hackman passed on February 26, 2025, the world mourned a legend. His performances in The French Connection, Unforgiven, and in The Conversation were raw, electric, and quite profound, but Coppola's tribute pulled back a curtain, unveiling something deeper. Hackman wasn't just a master on screen, he was a mystery in real life. The Conversation, Coppola's haunting 1974 thriller, was built entirely around Hackman's ability to make paranoia feel real. Coppola revealed that Hackman wasn't even sure he was right for the role. Gene became him, Coppola said, and he never let me down. Initially, Coppola had envisioned a particularly different kind of leading man for the film. It needed a star who was both charming and skilled at showing deep emotions. The character Harry Caul isn't your typical protagonist. He's a man wrapped in layers of secrecy, moral conflict, and guilt, living a life so private it borders on paranoia. As a surveillance expert operating in San Francisco, Harry's the best at what he does: wiretapping, eavesdropping, and stitching together conversations from fractured, muffled recordings. His skills are unmatched, but his obsession with privacy and control over his own life leaves him isolated and haunted by a tragic mistake from the past that ended in death. Harry's meticulousness fails him in the end. His own life becomes the target of surveillance, the hunter now hunted. Defeated and utterly exposed, Harry sits alone among the wreckage, clinging to his saxophone, the only thing left untouched. The role of Harry Call demanded a rare kind of actor, someone who could make the audience feel the crushing weight of secrecy, paranoia, and guilt. And Hackman delivered with astonishing depth. In that short time of working with him, Coppola revealed how much of a sterling actor Gene Hackman was, and his final words to Hackman as he was laid to rest were, "The loss of a great artist always calls for both mourning and celebration. Gene Hackman, a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work and complexity, I mourn his loss and celebrate his existence and contribution." But why did Coppola choose Hackman for the role? After all, if you were looking for someone to play a complex, conflicted character, wouldn't your mind naturally drift toward a legend like Marlon Brando? The man was a master at portraying troubled souls, raw, powerful, unforgettable, and Coppola knew that better than anyone after working with him on The Godfather. So why Hackman? What made him the perfect choice for the conversation? Why Hackman? The conversation was that movie that didn't merely depend on a central character who's just deeply involved in spying or intelligence gathering. The story needed a protagonist who could deal with the complex moral issues of the time. These issues included privacy and surveillance. The more Coppola thought about the movie, the more he realized something. The lead role needed someone different, someone who could embody the quiet paranoia, the crippling insecurity, and the fierce need for control that defined Harry Call. Marlon Brando was brilliant, sure, but his presence was almost too commanding, too obvious. Coppola needed someone who could slip under the skin of the character and disappear, someone who could be vulnerable without ever trying to be. Gene Hackman was pure intensity on screen, rugged, intense, and downright commanding. He had this way of delivering raw, honest performances that felt almost too real. You never saw him playing the charming romantic lead. He was always the tough guy, the one who didn't hold back. But off camera, Hackman was surprisingly shy and low-key, way more comfortable living a quiet, simple life. In Hackman, Coppola found an actor who could embody paranoia and insecurity.
I had no power. They could easily push me around, which they did and tried to.
With a rawness and authenticity that eluded many of his contemporaries. Hackman's trajectory through the acting profession had already been nothing short of remarkable. Having honed his craft on stage and through smaller film roles, he earned recognition but hadn't yet achieved the iconic status that would soon be his. When Coppola made the decision to cast Hackman, he was breaking conventional norms, opting for an actor who might not have been the obvious choice. Yet ultimately, it was this unconventional casting that would emerge as one of the film's essential threads, weaving depth and gravitas into a story that might have faltered in less capable hands. The day Hackman walked onto the set for the first time, there was undeniable electricity in the air. Coppola and Hackman shared a mutual respect and admiration that fueled their creative collaboration. Hackman infused Harry Call with an authenticity that transcended the written script. It became clear that this was not just a job for Hackman, it was an exploration. As the layers of Harry Call began to unfold, audiences were drawn into Hackman's intricately crafted portrayal of a man ensnared by his own work. The core narrative of the film revolved around the invasion of privacy and the ethical implications of surveillance. Hackman's portrayal of Call was laced with tension and vulnerability as he navigated a treacherous landscape filled with powerful corporations and personal relationships fraught with mistrust. His performance captured the essence of paranoia, forcing the audience to look at their own lives, making the story quite relatable. Coppola and Hackman created a kind of cinematic magic marked by the alchemy of their collaborative spirit. Scenes that might seem mundane became riveting through Hackman's ability to convey what remained unspoken. Consider the famous scene where Harry Call was in the park watching a couple, his keen observational skills allowing him to draw profound conclusions from simple gestures. Harry's guilt and deep-rooted Catholic faith waged war within him, and with almost imperceptible reactions, Hackman revealed the weight of his character's moral burden. Here, the power of the performance was not simply in the words, but in the silence that follows them. Coppola was adept at guiding Hackman while giving him the artistic space to explore and experiment. This was particularly significant since the conversation demanded a unique approach to character development. Hackman had the ability to turn the internal into the external. He could articulate through his body language the moral dilemmas faced by Call. Enigma was his middle name. Looking deeply at themes like surveillance, paranoia, and the effects of technology, one cannot outplay its relevance. The film was released after the Watergate scandal. People were worried about government spying and losing their privacy. Today, with smartphones and social media everywhere, Call's fears feel even more real. It mirrored our current worries about data privacy, and honestly, no matter how hard we try, we still face hacking and privacy violations from companies or governments. Being this relatable, the movie had audiences think about technology and trust. Watching the conversation today feels so relevant. The paranoia Harry Caul feels connects to our current worries about privacy. This makes the film just as important now as it was in the 1970s. Harry Caul was a character that reflected the fears of that time, and even now, Coppola's direction helped capture the essence of these themes. Together, their performances and direction create a powerful story that continues to engage and make people think. Looking back on the conversation, it's clear that Coppola not only valued Hackman's talents, but also used them to create a strong connection between the story and the audience. Coppola's careful direction and the film's slow build-up created a lasting effect. The conversation made viewers question how technology affects our lives, making many wonder if privacy is possible in a world that is so connected. The collaboration between director and actor cultivated an environment where Hackman's raw talent flourished, leading to a performance that has been lauded as one of the best of his career. In terms of the film's impact, the conversation is a mirror reflecting not only Hackman's individual excellence, but also the collective brilliance of Coppola's vision. Hackman's performance earned him critical acclaim, culminating in an Academy Award for Best Actor nomination, a validation that signaled to the industry that the shift toward quieter, internalized performances was taking root.
That I'm able to touch on that gives us maybe a sense of danger or something at times.
While many filmmakers focus only on telling a story, Coppola aimed to dive deeper into human connections, deception, and the technology of his time. Their partnership showed how well they understood and respected each other. This teamwork led to results that still resonate today. But before this sterling performance, let's look at the other groundbreaking records that pulled hearts to Gene Hackman. The man, Gene Hackman. Before Gene Hackman starred in The Conversation, 1974, he had already lived a life that could have been a movie itself. He wasn't born into Hollywood royalty, nor did he have an easy ride to stardom. Instead, his journey was filled with rejection, odd jobs, and a relentless determination to prove people wrong. Gene Hackman was born Eugene Allen Hackman on January 30th, 1930, in San Bernardino, California. His childhood was far from stable. His parents divorced when he was young, and his father walked out on the family when Gene was just 13. This was the kind of abandonment that could break any kid, but it only made him more determined to create his own path. By 16, he had dropped out of school and lied about his age to enlist in the U.S. Marine Corps. The military became his escape, and he served from 1946 to 1951 as a field radio operator. It wasn't exactly glamorous, but it toughened him up and gave him discipline. Probably these were the qualities that defined his ability to act in those intense scenes. After leaving the Marines, Hackman flirted with the idea of journalism, enrolling in the University of Illinois to study television production and journalism, but academics weren't his thing, and he dropped out. The next stop was acting. It was a bold choice for a man with no connections in the industry. He moved to New York City, then to California, enrolling at Pasadena Playhouse. It was a drama school that promised to train Hollywood's next big stars. But here's a punch. He wasn't welcomed with open arms. In fact, the school labeled him a lost cause, ranking him as one of the students least likely to succeed. Before landing big roles, Hackman did what most actors do. He took whatever. He worked as a doorman, furniture mover, and even a soda jerk at a drugstore. None of it was glamorous, but he had no intention of quitting. His first break came in off-Broadway productions and small TV roles. In the early 1960s, he appeared in shows like The Defenders and Hawaii 5-0. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep him in the game. The turning point came in 1967 with Bonnie and Clyde. Playing Buck Barrow, Clyde's older brother, Hackman delivered a performance that was so good it got him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Suddenly, the guy who was told he wouldn't make it was being taken seriously. The industry started paying attention to Over the next few years, he landed more high-profile roles, proving his versatility in dramas, thrillers, and action films. Then in 1971, he landed The French Connection, the movie that made him a Hollywood powerhouse. But his portrayal of Detective Popeye Doyle won him his first Academy Award for Best Actor.
It was like a new challenge. It was going out and trying to get that job and doing those auditions, and I loved it.
Cementing his status as one of the most intense, no-nonsense actors in the business. By the time The Conversation rolled around, Hackman was riding high. He had an Oscar under his belt, and directors wanted to work with him. But he wasn't chasing fame. He wanted roles that challenged him. That's why The Conversation was a great choice for Gene Hackman. Since then, Hollywood never lost sight of the talent he was. After The Conversation in 1974, Gene Hackman's career just flourished. He starred in many amazing films. In the late 1970s, Hackman showed his range in films like A Bridge Too Far. This movie was a Second World War epic with a big cast. He also played Lex Luthor in Superman in 1978. His portrayal of Lex Luthor was unforgettable. He returned to this role in Superman 2 in 1980 and again in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace in 1987. The 1980s brought a mix of drama and action for Hackman. In 1988, he played an FBI agent in Mississippi Burning. It's said he was investigating civil rights murders in the South, and this role earned him another Oscar nomination. In the 1990s, he continued with strong performances. In Unforgiven in 1992, he played the ruthless sheriff Little Bill Daggett. This role won him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Hackman's career continued to thrive in the late 90s and early 2000s, but Hackman surprisingly walked away from acting. What made one of Hollywood's most powerful performers decide to take a final bow? His retirement and death. Gene Hackman didn't leave Hollywood with a grand farewell, he simply quietly stepped away. His last film, Welcome to Mooseport, was a political comedy that flopped critically and commercially. After that, he simply stopped taking roles. For years, people speculated whether he was on an unofficial break, but Hackman eventually confirmed in 2008 that he was done. The reason was that his doctor had advised him that he couldn't handle the stress of acting anymore. Acting wasn't just about stepping onto a set. It came with a high-pressure, exhausting business that could be draining.
I like it so much that I find it harder to do now because I'm maybe more...
Between the rigorous demands of filmmaking and endless industry compromises, he decided he'd had enough. A stress test in New York confirmed what Hackman had probably suspected for years. His heart simply wasn't strong enough to handle the physical and emotional demands of acting anymore. He later admitted that while he missed the craft itself, he didn't miss the business at all. After stepping away, Hackman embraced his quieter life that he has always loved. He moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, took up cycling, and focused on writing novels, many of which were historical fiction.
Well, I like to think of myself as a craftsman, that there are certain things that you must do.
Occasionally, he lent his voice to documentaries but never returned to the screen. His absence only made his legend grow. In the final months of his life, Hackman's health was visibly declining at his Santa Fe, New Mexico home. He and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, had withdrawn from family and friends. Arakawa tragically passed away on February 11, 2025 from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. Hackman, battling advanced Alzheimer's, likely couldn't grasp her death and didn't seek help. He died around February 18th, his pacemaker recording an abnormal rhythm caused by severe heart disease, compounded by Alzheimer's and kidney disease. Their bodies, along with one of their 3 dogs, were discovered on February 26th after a maintenance worker alerted security due to their silence. 2 dogs survived. Although foul play wasn't suspected, authorities still investigated the deaths and confirmed it wasn't caused by carbon monoxide poisoning. Hackman's death was a heartbreaking loss, and Hollywood didn't just lose a talent, it lost a true legend. What do you think? Was Hackman truly the underrated genius of Hollywood, or did Coppola's vision simply bring out the best in him? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. If you found this story fascinating, click on the next video on your screen. Thanks for watching.